Thank you, Sean. No further links, by the way. I'm done with this shit.
I miss fireflies. When I was a kid, we had family reunions every year on Father's Day, and we always held it at this old like Indian fort close to where I lived. It was called Fort Belknap. The adults would gather on Saturday night, and they'd sing hymns in the old chapel, while the kids would, just run around and play in the fort. We'd climb the defensive walls and, throw around a frisbee or a football.
Oh, hi,
it was a very magical time for me as a kid because, we'd be out there playing and having fun, and then as the sun went down and the stars came out, the ground would suddenly just become illuminated with thousands of blinking little yellow lights like streaking around in these almost mystical swarms. And it was all accompanied by this chorus of my family members singing old time, gospel songs in the choir right there. It was really great. And this probably sounds like I'm waxing nostalgic here, and clearly I am. But I mean, like, this is like a core memory for me. Like I said, it was like a magical thing when I was a kid. Fireflies were everywhere when I was growing up. I mean, any summer night, we'd have hundreds of them in our backyard. We never even bothered to catch them. Like, people always talk about catching them in jars and stuff like that. We didn't even bother to, because they were just everywhere. Flash forward to today, my wife and I were handing out Halloween candy on Halloween night, and I saw one firefly in the yard, and I almost scared the kids because I freaked out so much. I feel like seeing a firefly now is kind of like seeing a shooting star. It's like a noteworthy thing. Now, granted, I live in the city now, and I used to live in the country back then. Obviously, there were more bugs in the country, but, my family still lives there, and I make that drive all the time, and that drive has changed. Like, when I was in college and I made that same drive, I would have to wash my car when I got home because it was just covered with bug guts, like moths and mayflies, mosquitoes, big fat grasshoppers. It was gross. But nowadays, I get a handful of dead bugs on there, but nothing like it used to be. I'm sure many of you have probably had a similar experience, and you maybe even thought it was a good thing. It is not. You're not crazy. Bug populations have been declining, like all around the world, in alarming numbers. So much so that researchers have started calling it the bug apocalypse. The story I just told is anecdotal, and I'm sure many of you have had a similar experience. I'm sure many of you are sharing that experience in the comments right now. But it's not just anecdotal, and it's not just the stories that people are telling. It is true. Bugs have been vanishing for a while now, and the numbers are kind of crazy.
They want us to eat the bugs, and then they complain about no bugs.
For insects, where they actually track the insects and the numbers and whatnot, and they've seen a 75% drop in less than 30 years. The number of beetles has dropped by 83% here in the U.S. in the last 45 years. In Puerto Rico, insect biomass has dropped 60-fold over the last 50 years. And I'm not just talking about in the cities. I mean in protected areas like those German reserves that I was talking about. Those are pretty far away from human influence. It's estimated that insect biomass declines by 1% to 2% every single year. Dr. David Wagner thinks that that's actually too low, telling The Guardian, quote, "Now I would say that 2% is happening in some areas, and we're seeing some places threatened by climate change or urbanization or agriculture get as high as 5% decline per year." The journal Ecology published a study that found that the number of flying insects declined by an average of 6.6% annually over 15 years. That's almost a 73% drop in the population. You want more scary stats? Here's one more scary stat. The Bumblebee Conservation Trust in the UK found in 2024 that it was the worst year for bumblebees since they began recording their numbers. It showed that on average, 24 bee species in Great Britain declined by 22.5%. Some species even dropped by 39%. Yes, big numbers, big scary. Here's why it matters. All right, let's start with the bees. We all love our bees, right? They're nature's pollinators. But bees aren't the only pollinators out there. There's butterflies, ants, beetles, even, I hate to admit it, wasps. They're all doing the hard work of pollinating more than 80% of the world's flowering plants. Plants that give us things like fruit, vegetables, nuts, spices, coffee, and chocolate. Thank you, pollinators. Not having pollinators.
Yeah, that is a big problem.